All right, welcome back to Failure TV. Wow, that's a great start.
That's a good failure.
Good failure to start. Welcome back to Failure TV, everybody. My next guest is a clinical psychologist who has a PhD in organizational psychology, and he's the founder and the curator of the Museum of Failure. Please welcome Dr. Samuel West. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh wow, we're off to a great start this morning already, eh?
You screwed up the intro, and I'm sitting in a dumpy hotel in Los Angeles. So, yeah.
Is there anything better?
No, it feels like a good place to talk about failure.
Absolutely. So just to start, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your history? What exactly is a clinical psychologist and organizational psychology, and kind of how did you get into that?
Well, clinical psychology is just what everybody calls a shrink or a therapist. So that's working with, anxiety, depression, behavioral issues, etc. I did that for about 10 years, got tired of it, and moved on to do some organizational work, which is basically the same thing. Instead of helping screwed up people, you help screwed up organizations, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same. I did a PhD. I think it's I finished it up about 5-6 years ago, and the whole focus of the research was on how to help organizations create an environment that sort of facilitates those activities of exploration and experimentation. Those are like two buzzwords for innovation. Like, how can we create a climate that's more innovative in organic sort of primary question.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, did that, then realized that the biggest obstacle isn't a lack of books about innovation. They're everywhere. And the problem isn't, a lack of methods and stuff for innovation and organizational creativity. The big problem is that people are afraid of fucking up.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, so the fear of failure seemed to always be there, regardless of which stage of innovation you're in, and it fundamentally sort of blocks, is a major obstacle for innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like thinking, like, what can I really want to sort of communicate the importance of accepting failure and the importance of learning from failure once you screw it up. And this is all focused on organization. So, and then, then I visited a museum in Croatia on the Mediterranean 3 years ago with my family on vacation. It's called the Museum of Broken Relationships.
Oh,
really, really good.
I should visit there.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And that sort of, I was never interested in exhibits or museums or anything like that. But that opened my eyes, like, wait a second, I don't have to write another book or do another talk or whatever. I want to open a museum. It's a new novel way of communicating and stimulating interest in research. So that was the beginning of the Museum of Failure.
That is very cool.
The
things you learn.
Yeah, you got to Google Museum of Broken Relationships. They're awesome. Just check them out.
Absolutely. And of all places for that type of museum
Croatia,
to be.
Yeah.
This is one of the beautiful things about travel.
Yeah, beautiful city. Zagreb, great place to visit.
Absolutely. I would love to go out there one of these days, and not just to visit the museum. I've had quite a few friends that have gone over there and said how amazing it is. So just from that, I wanted to go, and now I go just to check out the museum. Now you have to
go.
Yeah, exactly. So how long exactly have you been running the Museum of Failure, and kind of where did you launch it?
Launched it last year. Let's say no, hold on. Last year in June. So what is it, a year and a half ago? Something like that. Yeah. In Sweden, opened up in where I live in Sweden. It's a small city, Helsingborg, way in the south of Sweden. And it exploded media-wise. So we got global press on a absolutely absurd level. And because of that press and that interest from both from companies and from and just individuals, the museum then opened up in Los Angeles exactly a year ago in December, and it was a huge hit in LA. And then since then it's open in Toronto, and it's opening now in Shanghai next month.
Awesome. So do you have different exhibits at the different locations, and do they kind of tour around, or are they kind of
it's a touring exhibit. So okay. And now there's one open in Sweden, but it closes in January. So it's open usually like 3 months at each place, something like that. And the exhibits, I mean, if you went to the one in Germany or in Los Angeles, there's minor differences, but you would not see them. I know what they are, but yeah, I think like the one in Los Angeles was less politically correct than the one in Sweden.
Probably get away with it down there a lot easier.
Yeah. So yeah, but those local variations make it more interesting, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely try and target the audience in the area. Now, obviously, you didn't expect it to get that kind of media attention right off the bat and to grow the way it did. No. Do you think these days that people kind of have, like, if you go out and you search like fail videos on YouTube, there's more than you can count of people's fails. Do you think people enjoy watching other people fail? Do you think that had something to do with the success, or how do you think that went?
To be boring here, I mean, the Museum of Failure is not about the fail. What do you call it? The fail. What do they call fail videos on YouTube? Like, the failures I'm promoting are the ones that are done sort of at pushing the boundaries, trying new things. It's done in the name of progress and innovation. So if you fuck up, if you fall on your bike because you're stupid, that doesn't belong in the Museum of Failure. You're just stupid. Like, and you can upload that on YouTube and people can laugh at it. That's fine. That's one element of failure. The one I'm sort of on a mission to I feel like a preacher on a mission to educate people about is if you're trying a new trick on your bike, you're trying a new, like, you're developing this new way of biking. I don't know how that would be, but you're really pushing sort of the boundary of what is a bike and how can you, whatever, a real novel, innovative way of either biking or new technology for bikes. It's when those fail, like you start biking up a wall because you developed a new tire that sticks to the sides of the walls, and then halfway up you fall down. That belongs in the Museum of Failure.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite, well, actually probably my favorite fails of that type is Gorilla Glass for smartphones.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about Gorilla Glass because everybody's got one of these in their pocket, but they have no idea that it was actually created, I think it was in the 50s, completely by accident.
Yeah.
And it just sat on a shelf until Steve Jobs came around.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few examples like that where what's a failure in one context and in one time is not in another. So
absolutely.
And failure, it's always, I mean, failure is always like in a context. So if you fail, it's always evaluated sort of by what the expectations are. So, I mean, the academic definition of failure is that it's a deviance from expected or desired outcomes, or a deviation. So, I mean, and I like that. It's kind of dry and stuff, but I like that definition because you can evaluate failure based on it. So if I'm screwing around on my bike, right, and I'm trying to bike up a wall, I'm saying it's I'm staring at a wall right now. So, and I'm just screwing around, having fun, and I happen to fall on my bike. That according to this stricter definition, is then not a failure. I'm just, playing around. I don't have any goal. I don't have any expectations. But if I'm trying to sell you my new Spider-Man bike and it falls off the wall, then nobody buys it and they laugh at me, then in that context, it's a huge failure.
Absolutely.
So it depends on the intent and what you want to do. So, I mean, yeah. I don't know. Does it make any sense?
Absolutely, it does. And from all the people that I've talked to, everybody kind of has their own definitions of failure and their own outlooks on failure. And really, a lot of people that I talk to don't really have failure in their vocabulary in the standard sense.
Yeah.
Their idea of failure is like giving up on an idea. Like, they consider that part to be the failure. If they screw something up, it's like, all right, well, that's what I learned. Let's move on to the next thing and go on. But if they just completely fail at it, then that's the failure, is giving up on it.
I thought that interesting that people, because you've talked to a lot of people about failure. So that giving up on an idea is considered a failure. Well, in my museum, there's a substantial amount of objects there that are in the museum precisely because somebody didn't give up on them. So there's this myth out there that perseverance sort of is key. So if you just try hard enough, are smart enough, etc., you'll become successful. That's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. If you've got a bad idea, a stupid idea, and you're incapable of implementing it, it doesn't matter how much effort you put into it. It's still going to be a failure. So Steve Jobs, you mentioned him, a great example of knowing when to kill a project, because it's not ever going to take off. So the Apple Newton, you're probably familiar with that.
Sure am, yeah.
So it's I think it was 1997. I'm not sure, actually, somewhere there. It launched the Apple Newton, and the kick-ass feature was that you could write on the screen, and it could it recognized your handwriting. This little
ish.
And it was an awesome piece of technology, but it just didn't work, right? Yeah. So Apple, people made fun of the Newton, and Apple sort of was really embarrassed, and they lost a lot of money on this. So when Steve Jobs took over, I'm not glorifying him, but he knew what to do in this case. He comes out and he goes, wow, we've spent these many millions on the Apple Newton. It's not working. So he killed it. He just totally killed it. It's management, right?
Yeah.
And so he killed it, pulled the plug, put all those resources into continuing the development. And then, of course, that's what led to the iPad, Apple's current success.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting. So what would have happened if the CEO would have said, oh, no, we just have to persevere, dedication, you can do it, let's make the Apple Newton work? It would have failed anyway. So knowing when to stop, knowing when to throw in the towel is also part of success.
Absolutely.
And I think it's missed in a lot of the sort of popular discussions about failure, which sort of idealize the strong, determined, entrepreneur or athlete or whatnot. No, there's plenty of people banging their heads against the walls.
Absolutely. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've known a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's also a very common thing is, trying different ideas to see where they'll go, but knowing when, I thought it would work, but it's just, it's not going. So, and I've done that more times than I can count myself.
Yeah. We all know people who are determined to make their business idea work. And it just year after year after year, it's not working. And sure, they might find success somewhere, but maybe they would find better success if they just gave up and tried something else.
Absolutely. Take what you've learned from this person, from this experience, and that might open a door for something completely different that you hadn't expected. And I think that's where a lot of people fail is their perceptions of failure, again, are in the wrong places and causing them to end up in the wrong place than where they should be.
Yep.
So, in your life, is there any major things that you would consider a significant failure that you've worked past?
That I've worked past, or I'm still in?
It could be both, but the end goal is what did you learn from that experience, and how's that helping you in today?
Yeah, I mean, just now this morning I was dealing with a lawsuit. My ex-business partner that I started off when I started developing Museum of Failure, he sued me because he thinks he owns half of Museum of Failure because he designed the logo. He thinks he owns the whole concept, and it's a major pain in the ass, and it's costing me a lot of effort and hassle. And I look back and I say, so what did I do wrong? I mean, what do I do to deserve this mess? And yeah, I was sloppy. I was sloppy about picking my business partner, and I'm now paying the price for it. It'll go over, absolutely, but it's a major hassle. So that's one thing, and I think it's the same. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, it's a very similar thing to choosing the wrong, marriage, or what do you call it, relationship in other avenues as well. Like, be careful who you form these relationships with that you have to invest a lot into, whether it's marriage or business partner. That's one thing I'm thinking about right now. I mean, in general, my main failure is, and I don't know if I'm learning so much from it, but I'm really, really, really good at finding new sort of, embarking on new exciting projects. And I get all excited about it, and I'm good at it. I know I can take crazy ideas and make them happen with a very limited budget. And I have a good track record, so it's easy for me to get people engaged on my projects.
Yeah.
But my problem is, once the project is running, I lose interest in it. So I'm like, yeah, now it's all going fine, and I'm just not. But see, that's where the money is. The money isn't in starting stuff.
It's in running.
And so that's my problem. That's why I don't have any money, because I keep losing interest as soon as something becomes potentially profitable.
I have the exact same problem. I love starting stuff up like that. That's the fun stuff, like coming up with all these ideas. Yeah. And it's just like, Kate, what's the next one? Yeah, no, somebody else can do this.
Yeah. And then that somebody else, doesn't exist.
Exactly. See, this is why I need to win the lottery, is so I can hire a whole bunch of CEOs just to all these companies and stuff.
If you win the lottery, give me some of the money, and then I can do the same thing.
Absolutely. Donate to the Museum of Failure to keep it going.
I on the Museum of Failure, I have partnered with a company that they run the operational part, which is great. But they also take all the money. But it's fine. I would rather that it lives, keeps, it continues, than that I mismanage it.
Absolutely. And that's something that I've said as well a couple of times. Like, if I don't think I can manage it all, then I have to let it go and move on to the next thing for that. So
absolutely.
Out of everything that you've brought to the museum so far, do you have a favorite piece that's really stood out, or that you've wanted more people to see?
It's difficult to choose one of the 100 plus items we have, but
okay, how about a top 5?
Yeah, I'll give you my favorite one to talk about sort of when I give keynotes and stuff in serious business, the economic summit of whatever country or region. It's like super, super, super serious business context. And I love talking about Olestra. You remember Olestra? I don't know how old you are, but
almost 40, but I don't remember.
Okay, well, yeah, then you might have remembered at least your parents getting excited about Olestra. It was in 1996. Procter had developed the holy grail of food science. They had a calorie-free fat substitute. You get it? You can
Is this
eat
for margarine?
No, this is for potato chips.
Oh,
You can eat as many potato chips as you want without getting fat. You get this? It's exciting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's called Olestra. You Google this stuff afterwards. It's so the Frito-Lay and all the big brands, Pringles, potato chips is like 100% satisfaction, 0% guilt. Like you can just go crazy without the bad side of potato chips and other fatty foods as well. So this is all great, except that the Olestra, obviously if it's calorie free, you eat more than you probably would have if it's not calorie free, right? But so the big problem was that people were experiencing massive explosive diarrhea.
Oh.
So the potato chips became known as Olestra potato chips. They became known as causing anal leakage. And I love the story because it's like the perfect product. It's a big corporation behind it, and they launch it, and there's these huge expectations of, wow, we finally solved the problem of obesity and everything. Like this is like hallelujah. Everybody jumps on board, and then there's shit all over the place. Like
literally.
I think it's a great example. It's one of my favorites for sure.
Absolutely. It actually reminds me, I read a story about 3 years ago, something similar with aspartame and gum, and teens were like chewing massive amounts of gum to lose weight because of the same thing. It came from the massive shits. I'm like, that cannot be the best way to lose weight.
No, there's got to be other ways.
Yeah, less painful ways. Like, come on, guys.
I mean, there's a lot of different things within. I mean, the food industry is really good at creating new products. So there's a lot of failures there. So many that I've had to limit the number of those in the museum. So it's not just food and beverage related. But another good one I like. Another one is the story of either Blockbuster or Kodak. They're both stories of what happens when you're a fat cat and you don't innovate, you don't risk failure. So both those companies. They're long stories, but both of them really screwed up in that they had a dominant position, had a lot of money, like enormous amount of money, and didn't risk anything. Like they sort of did everything to maintain the status quo rather than experimenting and exploring the other possibilities. Yeah. And because
this is how we've done it for years.
Yeah. I mean, and both of the companies are huge, and then they're like, no, we're making a lot of money. Why should we try something new? And both of those companies don't exist anymore.
Exactly. If you don't, somebody else will.
They will, and they'll do it better than you. And then it doesn't take. I mean, today it's really difficult. I mean, you have to understand, Kodak was one of those companies that was. It was on marble pillars. Like it was a company that wasn't going anywhere. Just like
it's a 100-year company.
Yeah, I mean, just like Google is today. Google and Apple, we look at them. I can't imagine my life without Google, or Apple for that matter. Well, let's open. But I can't imagine how would the world, what would it be like if we didn't have Google, right?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, it's also gonna die at some point, just like every other organization, and we don't know why. And Kodak was like Google; they were awesome, right? And because they didn't innovate their business model, they went bankrupt. And Google could also be, and I mean, it's not too big to fail. No. But it's really hard to imagine how Google could screw up so badly or fail so badly that they go bankrupt. You know,
just look at Facebook. Like, everyone thought Facebook couldn't fail, and now look at them there.
Look at their screw, like they're battling to sort of wiggle their ways out of the situation they're in. I mean, Facebook, they're still making shitloads of money, but it can change so quickly.
It really can. Like, I remember the first time I heard about Facebook, I was on MySpace, for crying out loud, and MySpace was the big thing, and that's where all the hype was. And this new Facebook thing came out, but it was only for students. And I'm always interested in new technology, so I was asking everybody I knew if they had access, because I wanted to see screenshots from what are you seeing inside? Like, what's this new technology? And now it's like so ingrained in everybody's lives that it's like, what was life without Facebook? Well, we might get to see that if they keep up on their current path. And maybe Instagram, we'll see.
Hello. Yeah,
there we go.
There you're back. Okay. Yeah, cheap hotel internet. So
gotta love it. I don't know. I've had some bad issues with my high-priced internet too from time to time. So technology
could be on your side.
Yes.
No, but I mean, what's interesting about from my perspective about failure is that just like organizations have to become better at accepting failure if they want any kind of innovation or progress. I think it's the same for us as individuals. If we're not willing to risk being wrong or risk fucking up, and it costing us, like screwing up when it doesn't hurt doesn't count.
Exactly. You're not giving anything up.
No. So if we're not willing to do that and take those meaningful risks, then we stagnate. And in many ways, that's like Kodak or like Blockbuster. A person that doesn't, develop and doesn't improve, that isn't changing, they cannot adapt to the world that changes without their sort of consent.
Absolutely.
And we see what happens. They have a really difficult time. So there is not that big of a difference between individuals or organizations when it comes to this. So my message is really clear. Like, let's accept failure. Let's talk about failure, like you're doing on your show. Let's destigmatize failure. It still hurts. Nobody wants to fail. But let's kind of get over this sort of idea that failure is so horrible that you have to do everything to avoid it.
And I don't understand how it got to that point, because when you look at history, most things took failure to succeed to begin with. Like,
absolutely, just about anything,
Yeah. So how do we get to this point of it's bad? It's bad.
I don't know. There is some. I mean, there are. I don't actually know. I've thought about it, but I don't really know where we've gotten. There is some ideas about how we associate, because failure is a bad word. Like, and you say, "Oh, you're a loser. You're a failure," and you laugh at failure. You want to avoid being a failure. So and then we associate, just like we associate to other negative words. We give that word a lot of power. Which it absolutely doesn't deserve.
No, it really doesn't.
So I think it's obviously it's in our heads, but I think if we can let go of that sort of super fear of failure, we can say, hey, let's get it sort of look at it from a new angle or a new approach, and say, obviously, we want to avoid failure that's damaging. I mean, we don't want to damage our important relationships. We don't want to damage our health, or we don't want to end up destroying our economy, or So, in those ways, like let's say, like, let's be better at taking these risks that don't damage us, or if you're an organization, damage the organization, and be taking those risks that are sort of okay to fail on, and learn from them and develop and improve. So then maybe we can avoid these massive failures.
Absolutely. That's an amazing point. And actually, from there, let's roll into the last question here.
Yep.
If you could give somebody a piece of advice that's currently stuck in that situation, they don't want to take that added risk, what would you tell them, or what would you try and say to them to try and get them past that, to get them over that little hump to take that chance?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a good question. My main message there would be, or is, to really understand, like, okay, so what are you afraid of? Like, what is it are you afraid of being humiliated? Are you afraid of the social aspects of the failure? Like, should I start my company? Should I ask that girl out? Should I do that? Whatever you're struggling with, what are you afraid of there? Because if it's the social aspect, I can tell you right now, it's not. It hurts a little bit, but it doesn't hurt that much. And you build up this sort of idea of how damaging or how horrible it is. And the other aspect is, I mean, when you take a meaningful risk, you know that it might fail. So have a contingency plan. Like, if it fails, don't take a risk that's going to kill you. Don't take a risk that's going to seriously damage your relationships or your life. Take risks where you can live with the negative outcome, and living with the shame of I tried to start a company, or I tried to climb up the corporate ladder, or whatever you're trying to do, and then not have succeeded with that. Where's the shame in that? Like, get over 100%. that part.
Absolutely.
That's a great answer. Any sense?
Absolutely. That was perfect. And that's I think that's for most people that's the case. Like, the fact that you tried should be a good thing to you. Like, even if you didn't make it, you gave it your best shot.
Absolutely.
Like, that should be the important part.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you, and I really do hope that I will get a chance to see the Museum of Failure in person one of these days.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And for all those watching and listening at home, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next month. Have a great month and a Merry New Year.
Oh, Merry.